What up, people? Franked Lemonade here, and today going to talk about Metal Gear Solid, specifically Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes. And the reason I want to talk about Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes is not to really go in depth about the story or anything like that, but right now it's a really good time for Metal Gear. The Metal Gear Master Collection came out on modern consoles 2 years ago at this point, and Metal Gear Solid Delta is coming out in August for modern systems. So we're going to experience a version of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater or Subsistence in higher resolution with enhanced gameplay and things like that for the PlayStation 5. And I am completely hyped about that. I cannot wait to get my hands on that game. And in the midst of this conversation, there's been speculation on the Master Collection Volume 2, specifically around the games that were missing in the Master Collection Volume 1. And this includes Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes. And I, for one, would want to experience Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes on a modern console, but at the end of the day, I don't think it is as simple as getting Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes on a modern console. I hope it is simpler, but at the end of the day, 2003, 2004 was a different time period for Metal Gear Solid than it is now. Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes came out on the GameCube, and it was also announced that Metal Gear Solid Substance was coming to the Xbox. And it was only announced for the Xbox. It was a Metal Gear Solid game going to the Xbox, a Metal Gear Solid game going to the GameCube. There was a lot of unknowns at the time, because with the announcement of Metal Gear Solid 2 on the Xbox, there wasn't an accompanying message that Metal Gear Solid 2 was coming out on the PlayStation 2. So I do recall at the time, Metal Gear Solid fans for the PlayStation were kind of upset that the GameCube and the Xbox were getting love with games that the PlayStation was not. And this was a collaboration with Silicon Knights, Konami, and Nintendo. And Silicon Knights, the company that actually went through the process of making this game, went bankrupt in 2014. So my question is, did the source code for this game go to either Nintendo or Konami? Is it as simple as they have the game, they can port it to a modern console, and everyone will be happy? I don't know. I'm not really gonna speculate on that. And I hope it's a situation of we will wait and see. And it will be announced on the Master Collection Volume 2 along with Metal Gear Solid 4 and have that freed off of the PlayStation 3 and have other people be able to experience the game that is Metal Gear Solid 4. And I absolutely love Metal Gear Solid 4. It is a game that I pre-ordered. I went to the store when it opened, got it, got the collector's edition with the soundtrack and the Blu-ray, and just played it for, I feel like it was like 2 days straight, and just, you know, until I completed it. And the same thing goes for Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. Metal Gear Solid 1 was my first PlayStation game. Metal Gear Solid 2 was my first PlayStation 2 game. So, deeply invested in the franchise, and it's good to see that people who did not get to experience it the way that I experienced it when I was a kid get to experience it now. People who never played Metal Gear Solid or Metal Gear Solid 2 or Metal Gear Solid 3 or any Metal Gear Solid game for that matter have a way into those games right now, which is a great thing. And in the future, it it's trending in the direction that we will have the other Metal Gear Solid games that people did not get to play at the time. And it, for various reasons. Maybe you just weren't a PlayStation person, or you just missed out on those games. You were born after those games came out, so it wasn't your priority to play those. Whatever your reason, it's the time that you get to have access to those games. And hopefully everything goes well and more people will have access to those games. And we will get access to Metal Gear Solid the Twin Snakes. Because a copy for the GameCube is not cheap. And I don't know about anybody who comes across this video, but there's a certain price point where I just do not want to pay for certain games, so I don't. Usually, nowadays, when I'm collecting video games, I look for games that I didn't play, games that I find at a low price, and may not have heard of. So I get a new experience. But not everybody has these consoles. Some people emulate. And, however you play retro games, that's you. That's on you. Like, no judgment, no shade. If you collect consoles and you are up to the task of handling old consoles, then definitely keep going, because we need people to preserve, and we also appreciate people who emulate. I don't know who the we is in this situation. It's just I appreciate everybody who enjoys video games. I'm not gonna say one way is better than the other. And when it comes to playing older video games, I can understand people who were born after the PlayStation era not really wanting to play PlayStation era games, finding them clunky, having complaints. That's valid. It was an unexplored time, it was unexplored territory. People were doing it for the first time. Technology got better, so we were able to make games better. And with that being said, it would be ideal for some people to experience Metal Gear Solid 1 with the Metal Gear Solid 2 playstyle. So there is ultimately a need for this game to be remade for modern consoles.
By the way, how's the diversionary operation going?
I don't necessarily have any other arguments for that. And when it comes to this game, I think there is a lot of commentary on how over the top the cutscenes are in there and how much Snake flips and how many more scenes were just added. There was just added flair to the cutscenes. But I personally think that this just gives it its own unique flair. And it's something that initially I believe was designed to draw people over to the GameCube and get them to buy into the GameCube ecosystem. And I don't think that Nintendo got too many people to convert over to the GameCube from the PlayStation. Now, I'm just saying this from personal experience. I'm saying this from people around me at the time that a lot of people who played the PlayStation or the Xbox kind of looked at the GameCube as not so serious of a system, more of a kiddie system. And if you really weren't into Mario, just like to not look that way. And the slew of mature rated games that GameCube released at the time, I don't really think brought over a huge enough fan base for those games to do well. And that's why they're at the price points that they're at. I will say one trend about retro gaming that really seems consistent is that if a game didn't do well during its initial life cycle, it's expensive now because most of the copies are snagged and the people who have them want a pretty penny for it. And more power to them. I kind of wish it wasn't that way. I wish that the used game market was better and the prices were more affordable so that people who wanted to play a certain game could play a certain game. However, it is the ecosystem that we are in currently, and it doesn't really seem like it will change. It seems like games are going to get more expensive, both new and used, and that's just the way it's trending. Now back to Metal Gear Solid. The Twin Snakes, it's great. I love that they re-recorded the audio. I love that everything that is Metal Gear Solid is there. Like everything that
Sorry to disappoint
I
you,
get
but I did
nostalgic
manage to
about
smuggle out my smoke.
playing
How did you
Metal
do
Gear
that?
Solid 1
Hidden
on
in my smoke.
PlayStation
Thanks to the
is
ship you
there,
gave me that's
but
blessed my
it
stock
has the
assets.
controls
Cigarettes?
and
How else would I help
playability
you?
You
of
never
Metal Gear
know.
Solid 2. It is, I think, a great combination
If you want to
of
get in, there's the front
games.
door.
And
It's the fastest way,
I
but there's
know
too
that
much
there
risk
is
being
some
spotted by the enemy.
commentary out there
I can't just
that
knock on the door and ask them to let me in.
due
What
to
about the air
the
duct near the
layout
door?
and level
One
design
sentry on the left
of
and one on the right.
Metal Gear Solid 1 of
Armed
Shadow
with 5.56
Moses,
sixers and pineapples.
that
There should also
the
be a duct on the
features like
second floor.
hanging in
I
first
can't see it from
person
here.
view
I'll leave
make
you
the
to decide
game
what
a
best
little bit
COA.
easier.
I'm counting on you, Snake.
At the end of the day, that doesn't matter to me. I think these games are fun. I have fun. I have fun just replaying these games. I have fun just going back and looking through the Metal Gear franchise because each game is so different. And Hideo Kojima was really good at subverting expectations of fans. And it goes from MGS 2, where I think a lot of the feeling was we wanted more of Solid Snake. We wanted more of Solid
Vintage
Snake's
camera.
adventures. What we get is a little bit of Solid Snake and a lot of Raiden. And people did not like that. So Kojima announces Metal Gear Solid 3, and he's like, you'll get to play as Snake. But in his wording, he didn't say which Snake. And we got pictures of Snake, and it was in the 60s, and everybody was wondering how is Snake in that time period? Then we find out that it's not Solid Snake, it's Naked Snake. And then with Metal Gear Solid 4, we're like, oh, you're playing as Solid Snake. Because, again, the fan backlash was more so like, hey, you said we were playing as Snake, but that's not Snake. We were playing Solid Snake. And then he was like, okay, you can play Solid Snake, but he's old. Like, Kojima was always
Snake. This is
able
McDonald
to
Miller.
kind of
It's been a long
shift
time.
Master, what are you doing
just
here?
I quit doing
slightly
security
different
missions,
of your
so I moved out here for some
expectation
peace and quiet.
of the game
I'm in
at the
retirement,
time.
just like you.
And I
Once in a
think
while, I
that's
still get to
why
train the Alaskan Scouts.
these games are
Yes, the
constantly
scariest of the
revisited
generation.
and analyzed.
Campbell told me
And
about the situation here.
people look at
I
these
thought I might hear
cutscenes
some
and
news.
the
But I'd
parallels
rather have the
that
foxhole than you.
Well, I know
are
lots about surviving
present
in a
in our
harsh
real world.
environment.
The
I've lived in Alaska
storytelling
for a
that
long
Kojima
So call me if you have any
puts
questions
into
about the
these
flora or
games.
fauna out here.
It
The
is
difference
something
is one
that
for
should be
one,
studied.
one
It's something
apiece.
that should be talked about, which is why I am glad at this time people are talking about it. People are playing Metal Gear Solid. And
This is
there
Nostalgia Woman speaking.
is
A pleasure to work
just
with you, Solid
hope
Snake.
for the
You're the
future
nuclear specialist
that
that the Colonel
there
mentioned.
will be
That's me.
a
You can ask me
version
anything about
of
nukes that you
Metal
want.
Gear Solid
I'm
4
also
that
a
you can
military
play
analyst,
on your
so
modern
I
system.
have an extensive
There will
knowledge of
be
weapon
a
systems
version
too.
of Metal Gear Solid
They
The
asked me
Twin
to
Snakes that
participate in
you
this
can play
operation
on your
as a
modern system.
supervisor from the Nuclear
It
Emergency Search Team.
it may not
I was
happen,
happy to accept.
but
We must not allow
right
terrorists to get their
now
hands
with the
on nuclear weapons any more
popularity
time.
and like
I hope I can
the
help you to stop them.
the
You're a tough lady.
Those terrorists are
increased
serious about launching a
interest
nuclear
that the
weapon, and
re-releases
one
of
cannot
those
stand by
games
idly and allow that to
has
happen. And
created,
neither can I.
there's
Unfortunately,
hope.
all I can do from here
And
is provide
that's all
you
you
with
can
information.
Hopefully that'll be enough.
have at
Soon,
the
we'll
hope
make
for
weapons
at the
anyway.
end of the
Good to
day.
work with you, Nastasha.
I
Same here, Snake.
did not know how to end that one. But overall, those are my thoughts on Metal Gear Solid the Twin Snakes. And I really do hope that there is a modern release of it, because we finally got Tomba on modern systems, which I'm completely happy about. We got Klonoa, which was another game that was super expensive on modern systems. And the more that we get of those older games that are hard to come by, the better. The more that people get to play those rarer games, the better. Now we just need the Adventures of Tron Bond released on modern systems. Actually, I don't care. I wasn't into Mega Man, but that's a really expensive game, and I do think that it failed because people didn't know what it was when it came out. It is a character from Mega Man, but the title doesn't like really explicitly say that it's a tie-in to a Mega Man game. So again, maybe people who were fans of the game did not know that it was Mega Man adjacent, and it didn't do well that way. A lot of games back in the day failed that way. That's just how it was. Either way, this has been Crack Lemonade. This has been Metal Gear Solid the Twin Snakes, and these have been my thoughts on the franchise and just video games. Peace out.